All right, welcome back to part two of the Why Not Us, Why Not Now podcast. X and KB coming at you as we normally do on a weekly basis. Thank you to everybody who's watching on YouTube or however you may be listening to us on your podcast platforms, wherever you get your podcasts. Well, Lawrence Vaughn is back in the building, and we got to talk one of our favorite subjects, man, two different ways, and that would be the Los Angeles Lakers and the departure of the man who's been the face of that franchise for the past 8 years. But before we do that, there was something that happened in part one that I want to get Lawrence's opinion on. So we had Dev on in part one, Law. And first off, welcome to the show. As always, once again, we appreciate you being here. We had Dev on in part one. And we talked about Kawhi Leonard and the Toronto Raptors and that move happening. And we all agreed that this does not move the Raptors into championship conversation, but I said that they are at least a top 5 team in the Eastern Conference. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but that's what I said on that. And then I asked KB to start naming teams in the East that he felt were better than the Toronto Raptors because he didn't necessarily agree that they were a top 5 team. And I agree when it comes to the New York Knicks. I agree when it comes to the Cleveland Cavaliers. I agree when it comes to the Philadelphia 76ers. But both KB and Dev said that this current iteration of the Boston Celtics are currently better than the Toronto Raptors. Please tell me that I'm not alone on this, Law, because to me, they are banking on Jason Tatum taking this top 3 MVP candidate leap for that to truly be the case. And I just don't know if I see that happening just based off of how many big moments we've seen Jason Tatum shy away from at times. And that we honestly don't know if he can carry a team just yet by himself. It's always been the Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown show until last season when it was the Jaylen Brown show and we saw him lead them to the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. But do you have the Toronto Raptors being better than the Boston Celtics as currently constructed, or do you think Boston is better than them right now?
Well, first, I just want to appreciate y'all for having me on the show again. Means a lot. Honestly, I would have to see it from Boston. Like you said, every time we've seen them make a deep run, or even win it all, Jaylen Brown's been there. We haven't seen Jason Tatum with a band of role players do it on his own yet. We've seen Kawhi take role play. Now, granted, it's not the same Kawhi, but this same Toronto team took Cleveland to game 7. You throw Kawhi in the mix, okay, I could see them jockeying for top 5 seeding in the East. Boston, I don't know. I'm not sold on their big man Kata, who they just extended. I guess Jason Tatum is a 4 now, so there's that. They're also banking on Peyton Pritchard to take a Jalen Brunson type leap. I don't know if he has that capability because it all looks good and everything when you come off the bench in little spurts. My example for that is look how well Arch Manning looked that year under when Quinn was there, and he would come in from time to time versus his first full year as a starter. There was a lot more struggles going on. So I'm not sure if throwing all the chips in on Peyton Pritchard either is the answer. I don't know. I would just have to really see from Boston because it's not even the fact that we're putting all the pressure on Jason Tatum. It's you just tore your Achilles. And this would be the first full year post that. I just don't know. Now, granted, do I think Boston will make the playoffs? Yeah. But do I think they're going to be a top 2 seed like Jaylen Brown got them? No.
And KB and them were not saying that they're going to be a top 2 seed. We agree that Toronto nor Boston are championship contenders right now. I'm just struggling to understand how him and Dev believe, and they believe this wholeheartedly, that this current iteration of the Celtics is better than what Toronto has. And I said throw health out of the window on this. I know you can't do that, but just for the sake of hyperbole, throw health out of the window. I trust Kawhi Leonard and a Kawhi Leonard-led team in big spots more than I trust Jason Tatum led teams in big spots because I have seen Kawhi Leonard rise to the occasion in big spots on multiple occasions.
But let me ask y'all something though, because we talked about Kawhi Leonard in these big moments. We talked about we know about him on the final stage. We know about his tenure in Toronto. Okay, outside of that, he hasn't had to be on a team where he's had to be the main, like he hasn't had to be like, he also had a Jaylen Brown type of play. He had Paul George there with him for the majority of that. And Paul George was the more durable player in that Clippers tenure anyways. So when we're talking about it, the reason why I say that I'm banking on Jason Tatum and Boston to have a better year is because it's not necessarily about the fact that you gave up Brandon Ingram, you gave up Grady Dick as well. And you also have to look at it. I'm not in love with that roster. That roster still is a very mid roster to me. Both are pretty mid, but I'm looking at Boston has more veteran experience than Toronto does. I think that when you look at RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley, those are the guys that y'all are hitching y'all's wagon on, other than Kawhi Leonard, other than Scotty Barnes. Like those two guys are the ones that you're saying, okay, yeah, maybe they can get it done. And then we always talking about and then we talk about a guy like Jakob Poeltl, who's, I mean, he decent at best, but not really a formidable center in the league. And then we talked about the teams that they're going to have to contend with. We talked about not the Boston. We talked about the New York. We talked about Philly. We talked about Cleveland. You still have Detroit in the mix. You still have Orlando in the mix. You still have Atlanta in the mix. You still have Indiana in the mix. You still have possibly teams and we always talked about teams that come out of nowhere. We're not saying that they're going to make playoffs, but it's not just going to be a cakewalk through the East to where they're just going to be automatically slotted into, just like the Boston. It's not going to be a cakewalk for them either. These teams are going to go through they're going to have to go through more of a gauntlet this year than they have in years past, because Kawhi Leonard's coming back to a Toronto situation where he has a worse supporting cast than he had during his championship year. He's coming back to a supporting cast where it's more young guys than he had in his championship year that were thing is, when Kawhi Leonard was last in Toronto, he had a starting lineup that had guys like Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam. He had guys like that could go get their own, and that showed that they could go get their own. Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett, the way I describe them is streaky. When they're on, but when they're off, they're really off. And so when I'm talking about, I know X, I promise you I get the point that you're making about hitching it all on Kawhi Leonard. And I know about health can affect the trajectory of any team. I get that. But I still can't put them over proven teams yet. Just because it's not necessarily about Kawhi Leonard for me. It's not about Kawhi Leonard versus Jason Tatum. It's not that for me. It's the others that I'm not so sure about. Because if I'm taking out Scotty Barnes is a great all-star type of player. Is he an all-NBA type of player? No, not to me. He's a great defensive guy. He's going to guard your best player. He's going to rebound. He's going to mess up the game. He can, pass the ball as well. But is he going to be that guy that's going to take the leap? Because if Scotty Barnes takes a leap to like a 22, 23 point per game score, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, then we might be talking about something. They cooking with grease then. But if he's going to be the same Scotty Barnes that he was in years past, I can't say that I'm necessarily confident in that. I'm not saying I'm necessarily the most confident in Boston. I'm just saying if we're talking about Boston being number 5, Toronto 6. And that's until they show me that they actually can get it done. Not Kawhi Leonard, get it done without Kawhi Leonard, because we know Kawhi Leonard's not playing an 82-game season. But at this point, who is? Who's playing an 82-game season? We know this. But I need to see a little bit more from the other guys, their role players. Like you said, RJ Barrett being the star in his role, I need to see him be that type of guy that can go out there and get his own shot, a la like a Norman Powell. I need to see that type of growth from him for I could say that Toronto is going to be a for sure top 6 seed.
Okay, we'll leave it at that because we got to get into the topic at hand. An era has come to an end. The LeBron James era in Los Angeles with the Lakers is over. He informed the team earlier this week that he would not return. It was an 8-year run with the Lakers, culminated in a title in 2020 in the bubble, breaking Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's all-time scoring record while wearing the purple and gold. Before we even get into the breakdown of this move and everything itself, I don't know how Lawrence feels about this, but I'm going to go there. I want to say thank you to LeBron James, honestly, because he came to the Lakers during a time period where the franchise was in turmoil. Things were not necessarily looking up. There was slight hope with the cast of young players that they had that, okay, maybe that young nucleus could try to develop into something, even just that of a playoff team, even though we didn't necessarily see that happen. But LeBron James came to the Lakers at the time when he was the best player in the league, when they could not get anybody to come there. Prior to the trade that they made for Dwight Howard going into the 2012-2013 season, everybody else had told the Lakers no. Carmelo told them no. LaMarcus Aldridge told them no. Kevin Durant would not entertain going there. So LeBron came here during a time that he did not have to come here, put the franchise on his back, and led them during a time period where, one, the unfortunate passing of Kobe Bryant, the leadership role that he stepped up during that time period, him and some others on that team as well, but also the championship run that they gave us in the bubble during a time where people were stuck at home because of confined orders, because of COVID and the pandemic, and not really being able to go anywhere. And then just giving us 8 years of being an 8-time All-Star, the records he broke here. I believe that his jersey will be retired one day. I don't know if there's going to be a statue out there, because there are levels to being a Laker. And like there are levels to doing things that you have to do in order to get a statue. But I do believe his number 23 jersey will be retired for the Lakers one day. And more than anything, though, I just want to say thank you for helping make this a relevant franchise once again. Thank you for coming to my favorite team during a time period that nobody wanted to come here. And for what it's worth, we know that LeBron and the Lakers have been sneak dissing each other for the better part of the last calendar year. There's some form of respect that's there between both parties, y'all, because he did something for the Lakers that he had not done for anybody else prior to this during a free agency period. He told them before the start of free agency, you guys can move forward with your plans, what you're going to do with your team, because I'm not coming back. He didn't do that for Cleveland in 2010. He didn't do that for Miami in 2014. He did not do that for Cleveland in 2018. He did this for the Lakers now. So for all the reporting that's out there about broken relationships and things like that, I'm sure there were some mishaps or some things along the way, but there's obviously some form of mutual respect there, whether that's more so for Jeannie Buss or whatever the case may be. He did something for them that he had not done for anybody else. Law, you being a Lakers fan here, do you have any thoughts on anything that I just said?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with your sentiment. It was definitely in a time where, those post-Kobe years were definitely dark. And like you said, he didn't have to come to the Lakers. I agree with everything you said there. Because it takes a lot to put on the purple and gold and rise to the expectations. And a lot of people are built for it, simply put. Or you'll see people who think they're built for it until they get in the building and they realize they're not. And while some of his actions might have been questionable, he continued to put his best foot forward when available to represent the Lakers the best way he knew how to. Like you said, a lot of guys that want to put it on. I remember that free agency when Kobe was sitting in the meetings pitching, yo, you will be my number 2 for these next couple years, then you'll take over. They wasn't trying to hear that. They wanted to be the man right then and there. They couldn't see the vision. Braun was able to come in and not only accept the expectations, but pass the mantle on to what we now know as Luka.
So, KB, when it's all said and done, how will you remember this portion of LeBron James's career? Because We know it's not his best portion of his career. It doesn't come close to the 4-year stint in Miami, the 4-year stint with the Cleveland Cavaliers the second time around. And from an athletic standpoint, it doesn't compare to those first 7 years in Cleveland either. But it's still an 8-year run that you can argue would be a Hall of Fame career by itself.
I mean, I'm gonna look at it like he brought the Lakers back to a point of relevancy, which like we all remember those lineups of Robert Sacre, Jordan Hill, Kobe on one leg, Ramon Sessions. We all remember that. Like it was Dark Days was actually a compliment to what we were watching from basketball standpoint in LA at that time. Like the 2010s was not the prettiest basketball that you all grew up loving with LA basketball.
I want to put this in a nutshell for everybody to understand exactly what you're saying. In Kobe Bryant's final year, that was a year of rightful celebration of his career. The Lakers team record that season was 17-65, the absolute worst in the history of the franchise.
And furthermore, it was kind of like post that back-to-back championship, it was all just going downhill slowly, and then it culminated once we got to like the injuries that Kobe suffered. Yeah, so he came to LA in a time period that nobody else really wanted to come. He also was able to bring help when, Lakers were at that point able to get free agents. Like they weren't just able to sign people. I know that everyone was talking about Mystique of LA and playing for the Lakers. Putting that purple and gold on was just this big thing, but people they weren't able to sign anyone. He brought Anthony Davis with him. They got to play with each other, and eventually he helped. Whether we want to say it was all Nico Harrison or not, he was able to help get a trade facilitated to bring Luka over here, because I don't think that any of that signs off. If LeBron isn't here, I don't think Luka is here as well, at least not at the time that they got him. So, I look at it like, people are going to be split on this 50-50. Some people look at his tenure as a failure. Some people look at his tenure as he helped bring them out of, dark times. I look at it like he brought them out of dark times, because the thing is, could they have gotten one more? Possibly, but I think all of that was after the fact that they broke up that championship team that helped get them that ring in the bubble. I think that they deserved at least another run together, and they never got that. They let Caruso walk. It was certain things that happened in this time period that wasn't necessarily LeBron's fault, and they tried to keep that championship window open as much as they could. For God's sake, they got to the Western Conference Finals with Darvin Ham. I don't know what else you could do.
So I got to add a piece of context to this, to what you just said about when they broke up the bubble team. Yes, that was a mistake to let some of those pieces go, but what ultimately hurt them from getting another championship were the injuries that happened the very next season to AD and LeBron, specifically LeBron, because Solomon Hill, who is forever vilified in Lakerland for what he did, remember, the Lakers were the number 2 seed in the Western Conference going into that game against the Atlanta Hawks on that Saturday afternoon in 2021. And Solomon Hill sticks his foot under LeBron James as he is in midair taking a jump shot, and LeBron James comes down on his ankle the wrong way. And that pretty much was the end of that season, because if LeBron had been able to continue at the pace he was going, I think he would have won his 5th MVP award in year 18, and the Lakers would have at least been a top 3 seed in the Western Conference that year.
Yeah, but I also look at it too. We talk about what made that championship roster so like perfect for each other is that AD was able to play his natural position of a power forward. And I think that Dwight Howard, it wasn't just having Dwight Howard, because we know that Dwight Howard wasn't the same Dwight Howard he was in Orlando, but it was a fact that he was able to like be a roamer more so than anything. He didn't have to worry about taking the beating from opposing centers, the physical player down low. He didn't have to worry about that with that championship team. That's why it worked out so well. I think that, him asking for it, a center, a formidable center his entire tenure in LA was a thing, because we saw it work before. So to say that if the front office didn't make certain, significant change, we could have saw more championships possibly in LA. But that wasn't LeBron's fault. Now, of course, he is going to get certain blame because he helped initiate that trade for Russell Westbrook that eventually did not work out. So he's going to get some blame. He got to get something because that doesn't happen if he doesn't, if he doesn't sign off on all of those, or not all of those, but that significant move, because I think that set the franchise back a little bit because of the fact that Russ in his time, as great as Russ is, Russ didn't need LA. LA didn't need Russ because play styles clashed. They definitely clashed on the floor. And I think that when we're talking about LeBron's greatness, yes, you are going to talk about everything that he was. As a Laker, just as a Laker, I remember that first game, I believe it was in Portland. Those two fast break dunks and that, like, man, you could see how everybody was excited for him to be there. Now, did things work out the way that he probably envisioned? No, because like his whole thing was he wanted to compete. He still felt like he could compete. And prior to that Solomon Hill injury, LeBron was looking as strong as ever. I was watching that game. I knew it was like everybody watching was just kind of like, because we knew with those high ankle sprains, as well as we know, like they're not the easiest to just heal from. And for him, he lost a step after that. He did. He was not the same player. And I think still that's one of those injuries that if he has to look back at, like we look at each guy's career and we look at Kobe was never the same after the Achilles. We look at LeBron, he was not the same after that ankle sprain because of where it got him at. The time it happened, because I believe they were in the second half of the season then when they were getting ready for another deep playoff run, because they fell in the standings hard. And it was downhill from that point because that was when the Laker team looked as strong as they did in the bubble. And so I look at his tenure as a couple of unfortunate things, a couple of like a ill-timed trade, but I look at it as overall I would give him his flowers for what he did for the organization and that city, because losing Kobe the way that he did, winning that championship that year, gave them hope. Like this was going to be, better times ahead, because you lose a guy like Kobe in the way that they did that unfortunate day. They needed something. The city needed something. The franchise needed something. Anybody who grew up an LA fan, they needed something to hitch on. Like, and the fact that he was able to bring them out of obscurity, like, you got to give him his flowers, man. Regardless of what you think of him as a person or a player, got to give him his flowers for that, because nobody else wanted to come here. Nobody.
Also, Lawrence, here's the thing that I don't understand. I don't understand why the Laker fans have been so disrespectful about this entire tenure, about this, saying, oh no, we're Kobe guys and we're this and we're that. Y'all do realize that when this signing went down in 2018, Kobe Bryant welcomed LeBron James with open arms, right? And he said, if there's anything you need, I'm available. I'm here. When the Lakers were having that down season in 2018, 2019, LeBron and the young guys, when LeBron had the groin injury in the Christmas Day game against Golden State and things just unraveled from that point forward. I remember Kobe Bryant going on Twitter and saying, it's the seasons like these that make you appreciate the championships, and him saying that better days were ahead. Like, Kobe was all in on LeBron being here. You remember the games courtside where Kobe would show up to and LeBron would easily go over and acknowledge that he's there and dap him up and things like that. Kobe was all in on this. So I don't understand the Kobe fans who are just still being so tribal about this entire thing.
Yeah, and I would just say, like, people stuck in their ways. Given the rivalry that they had, some diehard fans won't allow themselves the gratification to be like, Braun really him. Braun's one of my guys, because they feel like they would be disingenuous to their fandom of Kobe. That's all I have for. I mean, uh, they're just stuck in their ways. I feel like you could.
Is it possible though that part of this also might be because we never got the LeBron Kobe finals that we wanted in the late 2000s?
I can see that. I can see that.
I think so too. I think it was more so Kobe fans, like the thing about it, people have like these players have mutual respect for each other at the end of the day. Kobe and LeBron developed a friendship. They were like brotherhood. You know what I'm saying? They went through battles in on the Olympic teams. And they had a genuine friendship. Now where it comes into it is now that Kobe's no longer here, his fans are relying on themselves to protect his legacy, right? And when it comes to that, a lot of it comes with animosity towards players that they feel like threaten a certain legacy. It's no different than like any player that has the potential, that has greatest of all time potential. We've seen it with Michael Jordan fans. We've seen it with LeBron fans. We've seen it overall, but these players have no issues with each other. It's more so that fans are not witnessing and acknowledging greatness in real time. And that's the problem with it because, like I said, if you really don't want it, if you feel like LeBron's tenure as a failure, then don't acknowledge that championship that you got. Don't acknowledge the championship at all. Because if that's what it is, then you still in obscurity. Because right now, if you take away his time in LA, you don't have a Western Conference Finals appearance. You don't have a championship. You don't have anything. You don't get any of those. You don't get Anthony Davis. You don't get Luka Doncic. You don't get anybody. And who's to say that y'all wouldn't have another 10-year stretch where y'all are basically bad, basically laughing stock of the NBA? Who's to say that if he does not come there in 2018 that anything would have changed? The culture would have changed. Who's to say that Rob Pelinka wouldn't have been out of a job? Who's to say any of these things wouldn't have happened had he not came to LA? Because it was all looking like they were set to be another team that was just going to be bad for a long time.
I got a theory for you, and it's not one that's necessarily going to be viewed in highlight because of what's happened over the past 7 years. But I do think that things would have changed because if he doesn't come to LA in 2018, Kawhi Leonard comes in 2019.
Yeah, but Kawhi Leonard, what would have because at that point, we're talking about 2018 LeBron just coming off of we know what iteration of LeBron that was. I still would have took him over Kawhi. Still, at that point in their career, I would have took that version over Kawhi.
No. I agree with you 100% on that. But what I'm saying is I don't think the obscurity thing still would have been in play like that. Because I believe that Kawhi Leonard would have came the next year. And I also believe that if LeBron doesn't come in 2018, I don't believe that Paul George resigns with Oklahoma City. I think he comes in 2018, and I think Kawhi comes in 2019. That's what I think would have happened.
Yeah, because I remember the Kawhi signing. The reason why he didn't go to the Lakers is because he specifically, I don't want to team up with LeBron and make a super team. He would rather have taken down LeBron. So it's a thing where it's like, all right, if Braun went somewhere else, Kawhi was coming to the Lakers. And who knows at that point who else the Lakers would have been able to use. But hey, we got Kawhi. Do you want to come play with us also?
Let me jog your memory too. Remember when Paul George was a free agent in 2018, and this was even after the LeBron James signing was happening, or Magic Johnson was in the process of getting that done? Remember that Paul George was supposed to have a meeting with Magic that he ended up not taking. And he said that I didn't take the meeting with Magic because I knew if I had have done that, I would not have been able to walk out of that room without signing that contract. So that's where my thought process and all of this comes from, fellas. It's like, yes, no doubt what you said, KB. I want that version of LeBron James over either one of those guys for sure because of what I had just seen. But in terms of what they have still been in obscurity, no, those LA natives would have came home. That's what I'm banking on would have happened.
Now, I'm curious as the point that you were making with the whole had Kawhi and PG teamed up in LA. Let's say they teamed up in LA for the Lakers instead of the Clippers. How much of that would they have to give up? How much of that team with those young guys that they had before LeBron came, how much of those guys would they have had to give up in a potential, trade to get Paul George over there, a la like how the Clippers had to give up so much to get Paul George over there? How much would the Lakers have had to give up of that? So I'm not saying so I agree with you. They wouldn't have been in obscurity, but how much would they have had to give up to get him there?
They wouldn't have had to give up anything at all because Paul George was a free agent in 2018. I'm saying that he would have signed first in 2018 and he would not have re-signed with Oklahoma City. That's what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
But I do believe that the odd man out in this ultimately would have been, with both of them, I think it would have been Brandon Ingram and Julius Randle. Because, like, that's too many front court players at that point that you would have had if Kawhi Leonard also comes on board the next year. No doubt to me, Brandon Ingram would have been the odd man out and all of that. But if that also happens, I have to question if Magic Johnson stays on board. I don't know if he would have because he and Rob Pelinka reportedly didn't have the best working relationship with each other.
Hey, Xavier. Lakers just traded DeAndre Ayton. I know that's some significant news for you. I know.
KB,
I know how you feel about that.
It is a beautiful day. It is a beautiful day. It's about to storm outside where I'm at, but it's a beautiful day because when he opted into that option, I almost lost it.
And to be honest with you, I kind of figured that he was on his way out for the simple fact that the Lakers didn't have any control of him opting into his deal, into that option. I just knew that with them signing Walker Kessler, it wasn't going to be room for him in that what their idea was going forward. He didn't fit the mold. After last year, I think that they were pretty much ready to move on from him anyways. I was tired of watching it myself. I'm not even a Lakers fan, but I was tired of watching him drop the ball. He couldn't catch. He was abysmal when it came to rebounding the ball sometimes against like really good big men. I'm good on that. And I believe they got Jaden Hardy
yeah.
You
could see the frustration on JJ's face in games coaching him.
Yeah.
Like, dude, Jaden
Hardy will give them something. He'll at least give them something that they may need from like a wing standpoint. So I'm cool with it. And you got some second round picks. So I consider that a win. Because that's all you had to give up. And you got a rotation player plus picks. Yeah. You win.
I feel like it frees up more cap space for hopefully my number one dude right now, Jonathan Kuminga.
I think it frees up cap space for Kuminga and potentially Rui Hachimura, who is not signed with anyone yet. And reports are that Rui hasn't signed anywhere because they want to see how much money the Lakers can actually get to possibly acquire him. Remember, all reports at the start of the week is that he was supposed to sign with the San Antonio Spurs in free agency. But then they signed Tobias Harris. So I don't see that necessarily happening. But yes, it is a beautiful day in Tinseltown. The skies are purple and gold once again. The Walker Kessler era is ready to get underway. DeAndre Jordan, that Jamaican food, they all going out of town. I don't have to worry about Luka potentially being under bad influences of good home cooked meals. Nothing against the home cooked meals, but Luka didn't need that in his life. I don't have to worry about dominating anymore. I don't have to worry about any more videos of dudes looking at chains over getting ready for playoff games like he was. That was absolutely disgusting. Hallelujah. Thank you. See, it's true what they say in the church, y'all. Trouble don't last always.
It's funny, too, because now DeAndre Ayton is on the move to Washington. And I'm curious about what that's going to do because right now, you have a situation where you got your bigs, only your bigs. You have AD, you have Alex Sarr, and now you have dominating. And I'm curious as to see where he's going to fit into that whole thing because you don't bench Alex Sarr if you're worried about Alex Sarr's development. Anthony Davis right now would probably be the starting power forward. So is that your backup big? Because I know DeAndre Ayton is trying to get paid. I remember reports came out after last season ended that he saw himself getting a good significant deal from somebody. Do you think he gets moved again though?
To answer your question, I'm gonna be honest. I really don't care. I just care that he's off my team at this point. And as far as Anthony Davis goes, I know that the reports came out this week that they are not interested, meaning the Washington Wizards, in trading Anthony Davis. I don't think the door is completely shut on that yet. If this NBA offseason has taught us anything, it is that nothing is final until it is done.
I still think that the AD to the Warriors may still have some legs. I still do. I think if you can get him and Braun in the building, I think that they're gonna try to pull out all the stops to get him. I think that, a lot has been made. A lot has been made about where LeBron's gonna go next. I know we've seen Rich Paul's whiteboard about the potential destinations. I think it still has some legs. I don't think that chapter is quite closed as far as Anthony Davis possibly being dealt either. So I'm with you on that.
Can I just say how crazy that is? This whole whiteboard with Rich Paul, and I just feel there's never been a more attention-seeking dude than like, and I get it. Many broad people will be like, Rich is agent. Rich, he didn't tell him to do that, bro. That's his agent at the end of the day.
You're right.
If Braun didn't want that stuff to be out, he would have told him, don't go up. You can talk between the lines about it. But they got the whole whiteboard, the whole war room whiteboard up. These who we looking at right now.
Hey, you all right. Hey, I'm gonna before I know you finna chime in on this, but I kind of see what he's saying because it's no different than like when it comes down to it. He knows that this is gonna generate buzz. He knows that this is gonna because when it comes down to it, LeBron has some type of idea. I know he's considering all these teams, and I know he's already said which franchise he's not going to play for. I know they already marked off which ones he's not going to play for and which ones he will play for. But when it comes down to it, it's just like when you're picking somewhere to eat. 2 or 3 spots going to stand out more than the rest. So you kind of have an idea already in your head that this is where I'm looking at potentially going. Now, the reason why that I feel like sometimes he does open himself up to criticism is because of the fact that this does seem like attention seeking, that he does want the spotlight to be on him again because of the fact that he knows that this could make or break some teams. Because you talk about like 76ers, this can make or break them. Like when I'm talking about getting, because they automatically go from number 2 to number 1. If they get LeBron, I'm talking about even a 42-year-old LeBron. If the 76ers sign LeBron with a veterans minimum with the veterans minimum deal, case closed. We done. Go ahead and let's go ahead and wrap it up because, like I said, it's going to be a lot of teams that are still waiting on his decision before they can kind of finalize all their plans going into next season. So I do feel like that is kind of crazy, and it's some opportune time for it to come out right after the Jaylen Brown deal's been made and certain stuff's going on. But X, I gotta hear what you got to say about that. I got to.
I don't disagree with it. I mean, if anything, I want to add the fact that honestly, it feels disingenuous because if you listen to the podcast, Rich Paul's been telling Max Kellerman for weeks now that he was not going to have any discussions about where LeBron could end up, who the suitors may be, anything like that. So for them to pull out that whiteboard and do what they did, because I saw the clip, is very disingenuous to the stance that he had been taking on all of this.
I agree because he told us we're pretty much walk away from the Lakers because we don't think they can win a championship. But somehow Golden State up there on the board. It's just not making sense. Then you tell us, I mean, not you tell, but we see New York Knicks up on the board. And then Rich is saying, like, yeah, they just won the championship. If they wouldn't have won the championship, pretty much he'd have already signed with New York. But so pretty much right now they're waiting on if Brunson gives them a call to say it's all good, you can pull up, and they'll go over there. It's just giving, like we said, the tension is everywhere else but me right now. So I got to bring y'all back over here to this circle. I done got my son paid. Cool. Now it's time for y'all to look back over here at me.
And for me, does this not give off like not exactly in the same way remnants of the decision? It kind of puts me in the mindset of the decision for the simple fact that I'm pretty sure that, there has been behind the scene talks LeBron has had with certain individuals when it comes to where he's going to play next season. Now, the reason why I say this is you don't release this without, like I said, like what Law said, without LeBron's blessing, you don't release this because this could have just stayed an internal discussion between a friend slash agent and LeBron. This could have been one of those things where we don't necessarily need to know who you narrowed it down to because the element of surprise is sometimes the best thing. With LeBron, this is all very strategic. I think this is all strategic because, like I said, we know what you are. We know you're evaluating a lot of things. That's why you're not in a real rush to sign anywhere. I don't need to necessarily see that you did a whiteboard and that you were like that's not something I think the public eye needed. I think that was more so, hey, I know that people, just like how, like, okay, you telling the Lakers you're moving on, cool. But now you're saying that you have a whiteboard and you're going to release it on a podcast, basically showing you of all the destinations that you're considering. And then also the whole thing about if the Knicks hadn't won the championship, that you would have signed their automatic. Like, I mean, brother, like I get it, but I get what you're doing, but you can't say in the same breath that you're not attention seeking when you're doing attention seeking behaviors. Like these type of things show that you are looking to be in the spotlight once again because we know how the media is going to portray this. We know they're going to spin it. You want it, you like the attention, and that's fine. I tell people, if you like attention, that's fine, but don't try to shy away from it when it doesn't suit you. Don't try to, stay out of the limelight when it doesn't suit what you're trying to be known for. Because right now you're being known as a attention whore. That's what you're known for being right now.
So let me just ask y'all this question though. Realistically, I don't buy too much into this whole whiteboard thing, to be quite honest with you, because there was a piece of information that came out this week in multiple reports saying that LeBron James is hiring a crew who will film this next upcoming season as a documentary or documentary series for later on. To me, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but to me, I feel like it's going to end up being Cleveland. And I feel like when the announcement is made that it's Cleveland, there's also going to be an announcement that comes along with it that this is my final season of playing in the NBA.
Yeah. When you talk about the documentary, it makes sense for it to be Cleveland because what a feel-good story to go home to end it on your own terms, back where it all started. For the documentary's sake, it'd be pitch perfect. Now, of course, from a fan perspective, is some fans out there that would like to see it. No matter if it's an old Steph and old LeBron, they want to see it. But for the documentary's sake, I could see why you say that it would be Cleveland because I think that this may be a ruse. This might just be something to kind of fool everyone, and then I'm gonna come out of nowhere, almost like a decision, and say, "Hey, I'm coming home."
This is literally a carrot dangling theory in my mind right now. But right now, I mean, I look, I could be wrong, but just based off of the documentary itself, that feels like Cleveland. Lawrence, where are you at on it?
I agree. And I had said that in our group chat. Like, it does give me Cleveland vibes with you doing a documentary. I can't remember if Cleveland was on the whiteboard or not, but he also, and this is one of my like things I don't like about LeBron. It's like he'll be talking out of both sides of his mouth. It'll be one thing, I'm doing a documentary, which gives out, okay, like he's probably gonna go home. Oh, I want to play for a contender though. I want to get another ring. I still feel like I can play the top level of my game. Okay, for sure. So in that case, like you said, Philly in the mix. Um, I saw Denver on the board.
You are right though, Law, because he even had the Mavericks on the board, and I
Yeah,
said that makes
bro,
no sense if we're
when they got
talking
it to that point about about Dallas, I said, okay, bro, is LA not in a better position than Dallas? Like the reasons listed next to Dallas that Rich talked about for the majority had nothing to do with basketball. it had to do with post basketball. They talked about golf, oil, and just the tax-free land. Like that ain't got nothing to do with winning a championship.
And again, I didn't buy into this whole whiteboard theory even when we saw it, just for the simple fact that when it comes to, you're comparing the Maverick situation and the Lakers situation, LeBron's relationship with the Lakers had ran its course. And if you understand that, you just understand that. The fact that they came out earlier this week and said that we're open to playing for any other team in this league, we're going to listen to any pitch that anybody else has to offer. One, I never believed that to be true, but you coming out and saying that, it's like, okay, we're willing to stay anywhere but here. Relationship has ran its course here. So we will see what ends up happening with all of this. But hey, it's just a nice little entertaining piece that gives people who need to create content something to talk about. That's really all this whiteboard thing was to me. But like I said, it was very disingenuous. It is attention seeking, no doubt about it. But it's very disingenuous from the stance that Rich Paul had been taking with this entire approach to everything. Because I don't know how often y'all watch that Game Over podcast with him and Max Kellerman. Max had been poaching him for weeks, trying to get information out of him. And Rich's stance was, Max, you're not going to get me to talk. You're not going to get me to say anything. Well, the whiteboard theory says something completely different.
Yeah, I think so too.
I feel like, and dang, I hate to say this, but I feel like there might be a bit of a power struggle going on between Braun and Rich, because Rich trying to get stuff and set his own stuff up. I thought they've kind of gotten away from the friend part of their relationship to more like client and player. And so Rich doing stuff in his own orbit, trying to drive up engagement for himself. It's just, to me, I'm not leaking that stuff, bro. I'm not leaking that stuff. To KB's point, you know what's going to come from it. You know the reaction that's going to come. Same thing when Braun ended up trying to have them lies about, well, Bronny, the Lakers just took a really good player, 55. Nah, G, you knew what was coming when the Lakers took Bronny. You orchestrated that from behind the scenes.
And that's also why it was important for this relationship to come to an end, to get a stronghold off of this entire thing. The acquiring Luka Doncic thing was about, okay, we have to move on to what's next, but we need something to be next in the building. And that currently was not there because, yes, getting Bronny there, that was a stronghold by LeBron, Rich, and all of Clutch, getting Bronny there for that, no doubt about it. But I want to talk a little about the moves that the Lakers did make this week, because I was very unhappy at the start of this week with what it looked like they were not doing. Number one, Luke Kennard left. He was a big sharpshooting piece for us. I was disappointed that he left. I was disappointed in the fact that it just looked like they were not making any moves whatsoever. There were no 3-and-D players coming in, no big wings coming in, no bigs coming in, and Walker Kessler kind of honestly felt like a pipe dream at the beginning of the week because he's a restricted free agent, and you just felt like the Jazz were going to match whatever it was. And then Wednesday, Rob Pelinka got to work. He got to work, and he got the sign and trade done to get Walker Kessler there. He signed Quentin Grimes. He signed Samu, the sharpshooting big from the Toronto Raptors. There was another one. Oh, yes, Colin Sexton, bringing in Colin Sexton as well. And now we wait to see what are the other moves that they're going to end up making here as a result of this. And Luka Doncic has reportedly already came out and given his thumb ups approval on the moves that Rob Pelinka has made, specifically making sure that they re-signed Austin Reeves and making sure that they acquired Walker Kessler. So now the ball's in Luka's court. Lawrence, hey, all right, we need you to be here. We need you to be healthy next season. This is all now contingent upon you. Also, the fact that Rob Pelinka gave away more first-round draft picks in this deal to acquire Walker Kessler. The Lakers do not own a first-round pick for the next 7 years. So this really feels like a make-or-break situation.
I mean, I felt like it was good. And this was something that X, I had kind of touched on last night in our group chat. I just feel like Rob gets a lot of hate, bro. Like he can't win for losing. I get it, bro. So we go to the Luka trade that Rob did. A lot of people are like, well, that was Nico's incompetence. Nico, it takes two to tango at the end of the day. At the end of the day, it takes two to tango because originally Dallas wanted more. They wanted Austin Reeves or they wanted Rui. They wanted more in the trade. They wanted another first round pick. Rob said, "Nah, G, you gonna take Max Christie and AD, or we not gonna do it." So there got to be credit for that. He built that 2020 team. Granted, he blew it up, but he built that 2020 team. I don't hate every move Rob does. And then even going to this time last year, yeah, the wish list was as long as ever for players the Lakers wanted, the fan base wanted Lakers to get. A lot of deals that the players took when they said no to the Lakers offered them the same deal. If the dude don't want to come to the Lakers, I mean that's out of Rob's hands. I mean, I can offer you the same amount of bread. I can offer you the same amount of guarantee years. After that, the player got to say yes or no. And if they're saying no, which at that time you were having to deal with Braun, Luka, and AR, so you're coming into a situation knowing, bro, you'll be lucky to get 8 shots a game. Cats are saying no to that. I don't see how that's Rob's fault. But now we see, like we always see, Rob put that big boy hat on and go to work. He'll make moves. There are a lot of other GMs in the league who haven't done half of what Rob has done positively, but don't get talked about as much as he does. But they've done twice as much bad, and it's still not talked about. Not to mention, Boston dude just traded Jaylen Brown for a bag of chips. Rob ain't never did, and we talked about how bad the Lakers were before Braun. Rob ain't never put a team out that was that bad. All the stuff that Rob did, he ain't never put a team out that was that bad. That's what 10th, 11th place. I just feel like Rob gets a lot of hate. Granted, you working for the Lakers, cool. I get all that. I get that. But it's not like it's not like he's doing malpractice with the moves he does. We just got 3rd last year. I want to say the year before that we got 5th. We have a competitive bunch.
KB, do you want to chime in on this before I chime in on it? Because I'm going to share what my response to all of this was last night, because I never actually heard what Lawrence had to say in terms of my response to it.
I mean, you're talking about just as far as the deals that the Lakers have done and
the deals the Lakers have done, and in terms of fans and how they view Rob Pelinka.
I mean, I ain't gonna lie to you, like how they view Rob Pelinka, there's a lot that comes with the job because LeBron had to take the criticism of being in LA and not coming up, not coming close to it. Like I say a lot of teams, they're a byproduct of their front office and what they're putting out on the floor. And Rob Pelinka, he should get some blame. He should get some credit. He should get some blame. But I think that just comes along with being the president or GM of a very well-known franchise, historically winning franchise at that. So the deals, I mean, they cool. I think that it was more so they did deals that were going to maximize Luka and what he could, what he could do. I think that, X, I know you talked about the Austin Reeves deal, and I know that was one of those things that was kind of like, is that really going to be, is that really a number 2 option that you want to put next to Luka? Ain't got no choice now, but I think locking up Walker Kessler was a big thing because I'm gonna be honest with you. The way I look at those picks don't really matter as much if you're competitive every year. If you're competitive and you're competing for championships, the picks aren't that big of a deal. And the reason why I say that is because you could end up building an OKC, but you also could end up not being OKC. You could just have a bunch of picks every year. You could just, be hitching your wagon on young talent, developing young talent, or you can go ahead. But what did we talk about before, X and Law? We've heard LA is not patient when it comes to waiting for things to develop. They are a city that is defined by winning championships, whether it's been baseball, whether it's been basketball, and across other sports. It's the thing is like they are not going to wait around for a pick to maybe develop within 5 years. They're not doing that. So the thing is, because I believe Walker Kessler got a similar type of, not exactly the same deal, but a similar type of deal to be extended from Utah. He turned that down, which means to tell me he had to green light that deal as well. He wanted to be in LA. He needed a change of scenery, which for my thing is now, like I said, you had put a Walker Kessler next to an AD. I ain't gonna lie, that would have been something to see. But that's historical type of news. But I think that Walker Kessler, he's gonna pay dividends for the Lakers because now you actually have a rim protector. You have someone that can protect the rim. Now, when it comes to those other deals, I got to see it. I mean, Quentin Grimes, he helps as far as the Lakers 3-point shooting. And I know that he's not the same player that he used to be. He's actually improved a lot more being able to attack the rim. I think that the Lakers could actually be one of those dark horse teams that can make some noise. I don't know if they're going to necessarily, they're like championship contenders right now because I don't see them as that. I see them as like being pretty good. They're not gonna go back to to obscurity or nothing like that. I think that Luka, Austin Reeves, a combination of Luka, Austin Reeves, Walker Kessler. I think if they're able to get Kuminga and also keep Rui, I think that the Lakers are gonna call that a successful offseason. I think that if they can get those two, that'll kind of bring certain things in together and start making things look like they make a little bit more sense. Because if you can get a talented wing, a young guy in Kuminga, bring back Rui, who at times he's looked like one of your best players. I think you can kind of salvage the all season with that and say like Lakers, they dished out a lot of money, but as far as contending, you could say like, okay, they may not be ready right now, but I could see them possibly being there like next season. But I could easily say we don't know what's going to happen with the like injuries. We don't know what teams are going to fall off this year. So who's to say the Lakers can't be, what I'm saying, back into a possible dark horse Western Conference team? I don't know, but X, he's the certified Laker fan. I know he's gonna dissect this thing a little bit differently than me, but I ain't too mad at it. Maybe the numbers that they gave out for these guys, for the guys that they got that are like role players, might be a little high, but I ain't necessarily too mad at the deals.
I do want to just add one more thing on Walker Kessler because I've been seeing a lot of people are pissed that they feel like the Lakers overpaid. They've been trying to get Walker Kessler for the past 3 years minimum. They've been trying to get Walker Kessler. Utah's GM is Danny Ainge. One thing Danny Ainge gonna do is stronghold you. He going when he knows you want somebody that he got, it's not gonna come cheap. The initial deal was like, okay, y'all give us Austin Reeves, a couple first round picks, boom. Lakers ain't want to give up Austin Reeves, and this was before Luka. Well, then like they had to keep revisiting the deal over and over and over. Utah would never budge. Cool. Well, then we get Luka. Luka and AR really hit it off. So now there's no way you get an AR, but Walker about to be a free agent anyway. So cool. We'll just pick him up in free agency. Ain't no problem. Utah extended that man for a 1-year deal, $30 million. to where we know you gonna sign this. Cool. I'm not saying that's the reason they did it because of the Lakers, but it bought them more time with him. This deal that they gave up that everybody's upset about because now the Lakers don't have another first round pick for 7 years. There was no other way to land him right now. And sometimes you have to put a deal out there that you know that they can't say no to. Because at that point, when they had made the deal, Jaylen Brown had already been traded. Braun had said, I'm not coming back. We lost Marcus Smart. We lost Luke Kennard. Giannis had been traded. Pieces were already moving. You were in jeopardy of getting left behind. And with Luka's contract coming up in the next 2 years, you have to show him, buddy, we all in for you. Like, we believe in you to get us to where we need to be. Yeah, bro. So to KB's point, when you picking in the 20s in the late first, what's the chances you finding your next great Laker big man in the 20s? Granted, I understand Joker was picked in the second round. How many Jokers are in the NBA? So at some point, you've got to be willing to gamble these picks that we're picking 20, 23, 25, 31, or this 24-year-old big man that can shoot the three, be a rim protector, and a lob threat.
Right. So to the moves themselves, I'm not against any of the moves. I mean, he brought in the type of players that you needed to bring around to build around Luka. But I want to talk to the Rob Pelinka piece in this in particular, because even though I'm not from this era, I understand, especially when it comes to the old heads who are in their 60s, 50s, late 40s, I understand what this really might be about. It's really not about Rob Pelinka, because a lot of us felt the same way about Mitch Kupchak as well. What this really is about is a frustration of the Lakers no longer being what the Lakers were that those people probably grew up knowing them to be. The absolute best team in basketball that had the absolute best front office in basketball. The people in that age range that I just spoke of who are Laker fans, they grew up with Jerry West as the general manager and Dr. Jerry Buss as the owner. Rest in peace and God rest their souls to both of those men. So I want to go down the rabbit hole really quickly, if I may, to talk about Jerry West's tenure as general manager of the Lakers. Magic Johnson is the number 1 overall pick, even though history tells us that he wanted Larry Bird. Still got Magic Johnson. Either way, all-time great. Getting James Worthy with the number 1 overall pick in 1982, even though a lot of that was due to the horrible management that Ted Stepien was doing as the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers. He is arguably the worst owner in the history of professional team sports. If you don't believe me, just research the name and just look at some of the things that he did. But Lakers still had to pick, still picked James Worthy with it. Being able to identify that Norm Nixon was on the downside of his career and they needed to get younger at the shooting guard position. What did he do? He went out and acquired a younger Byron Scott, drafting AC Green later in the first round, taking a chance on an older Michael Thompson and bringing him in to be a part of this, helping to continue to develop Michael Cooper into being one of the best two-way players in basketball, and during that time period, arguably the number 1 best defensive player in basketball. Let's go to the 90s, shall we? Moving heaven and earth to get Shaquille O'Neal to the Los Angeles Lakers, trading all of the Lakers except for 2 to create the cap space to get Shaq there. And also in that same year, identifying a young 18-year-old in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and being able to identify that his upside was going to be very bright in a way that other teams around the league could not do. And that's proven to us because he fell to number 13 in that draft. I'm talking about Kobe Bryant. So Laker fans have been spoiled by the greatness that was displayed in the front office from Jerry West and Jerry Buss. And You haven't really had that since, because remember in the mid to late 2000s, Dr. Buss started to relinquish some of the day-to-day operations to his children, in particular Jim Buss, who he had a lot of belief in. And it just hasn't been the same, honestly, management-wise, since Jerry Buss walked out of that door as general manager. I can make the argument that Jerry Buss is responsible for 11 of the Lakers' 17 championships. 1 as a player, 5 definitely during the Showtime era. Oh, I forgot his most important move during the Showtime era. Being able to identify that assistant coach / broadcaster Pat Riley was the right man to lead the Showtime Lakers going forward after firing Jack McKeon because of the issues that he and Magic Johnson had with each other. So, like I said, it's really not about Rob Pelinka himself. It's more so about the fact that there is a frustration that teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder have a guy like Sam Presti who's able to make the moves that he's able to make and just make everything work. And there was just once a time period where that existed in Lakerland, and it hasn't existed for a very long time. That's where I believe most of the old heads' frustration comes from when it comes to this. It's not really necessarily about Rob Pelinka himself, the moves that he's made, but it's just like, man, we see what Presti is over there doing in OKC. The way he identified J-Dub is very similar to me in the way that Jerry West identified Kobe. Even though Kobe was a highly touted high school prospect, teams weren't taking chances on high school guys very likely back then. They took a chance on Kevin Garnett the year before. The Minnesota Timberwolves drafted him at number 5, but it wasn't the most ideal rookie season that Kevin Garnett had. Kevin Garnett didn't start to really blossom into KG that we know him to be until that second season. Taking a chance on Kobe was a risk. Well, J-Dub went to a smaller college, and he wasn't on a lot of teams' radars the way that he probably was on Sam Presti's radar, going as high as he did. It's very similar to how Klay Thompson was on the Warriors' radar, and Jerry West also played a role in that Warriors dynasty as well. So that's really where the frustration is, Lawrence, if you ask me. Now, I could be wrong. These people have a totally different point of view, and it could just be about the fact that they don't like Rob Pelinka. But the old heads that I talk to about this stuff, it's just simply the fact that we just know that we used to have it a certain way that we just don't have it anymore, and we miss having it. That's what it is.
I would just say to that, and granted, I agree with a lot of you said, but to me, a big part of that has just become the game has changed. It's not like, and I kind of look at it the same way, like with the Yankees. Back in the day, Yankees used to get everybody because, like, homie, we gonna throw this bag at you. You gonna come put the pinstripes on. It is what it is. Same used to be with the Lakers. Like, there used to be a time where players would take pay cuts to go play with the Lakers. Dude's not doing that anymore because the CBA's gone up. We're like we talked about at the beginning. We just saw Kata get cashed out. 86 mil. Yeah, I'm not saying Charlotte got that money, but the overall CBA has rose to where even smaller markets have that ability. Not to mention you got this first apron and the second apron. So it's going to be like a thing where front offices have to decide, do we want to go into the second apron? And even owners, do I want to have to pay that bill? Because we can be competitive this and the third and not break that second wall. And I feel like that's the part where people are like getting lost in translation also, because it's like, oh, I just want my team to get all the great players. Cool, I hear you, but it's a business also. And these guys, just like with NIL in the collegiate sports, they want to get paid. You used to have all the 5 stars going to Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, and they would ride the bench. Homie, why am I going to go ride the bench somewhere when I could go over here to Oklahoma, when I could go over here to USC, get paid, not only get paid more, but see the field.
KB, what are your thoughts on anything that you just heard within the past 5 minutes or so?
Yeah, I can't disagree with too much of it. Like I said, this is one of those situations for me. Like, if I'm talking about just Rob Pelinka, right? I think that, like I said, I'm kind of in the middle on him on both. Like, I'm on the middle because, like I said, he do more, yes, but has he done enough? I don't know yet. I think that people have grown frustrated with him over the last couple of years because a lot of people feel like that he wasted a lot of that time that he had with LeBron. Um, so like I get why like some people might say that like while he's been elevated in his role that it's been a failure, but I don't know. I kind of look at it like yeah, I'm like 50-50 on him. Like I really don't really give too much insight on Rob Pelinka as it is because it's like I know that it's kind of where you can say like he did good with a few of the offseason acquisitions, but then you can also look at like where was all of this like gall when you had LeBron, Luca, everybody in the building. So I think it's just yeah, I'm not too sure really what to make of what these picks, I mean, what these signings have done for the Lakers, but we'll see.
Oh, I understand why he wouldn't make them when he had both LeBron and Luca in the building because it was about transitioning fully into the Luca era, and they didn't see, nor did they really want LeBron to really be a part of that. If anything, the questions come with why didn't you do this when you had LeBron and Anthony Davis?
I think also when it came down to it, they let LeBron stranglehold too many of their decisions. Like he was able to dictate too much of what was going on in LA when he should have just been making the best organizational moves instead of what would be best for LeBron. Now I understand you do want to get some type of feedback from your star. I get all of that. But if you're saying that at times, because if you're saying at times that Anthony Davis was your best player, then yeah, you need to be doing what like why didn't you necessarily get what he needed as well? Because he needed a center. He needed things that you weren't willing to accommodate. So then you, like I said, it all went downhill when they started taking advice and getting like little bug in their ear about like when Russell Westbrook came. That's when it started. And then that ultimately led to where they are towards the end of LeBron's tenure because once that happened, and then especially when they saying like reports coming out now about the fact that he blamed the Lakers for that deal when it was because of him why that deal was even initiated in the first place. It's just kind of like the relationship because I can kind of see it from the front office standpoint and be like, we only did that deal to suffice you to give you what you wanted.
There is literally a picture out there somewhere. It appears to be disappearing even more each year now. There's a picture out there somewhere of Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis all sitting down at LeBron James's house. I remember when this picture was posted in 2021. I can't find that picture anymore for the life of me. But they were all sitting down, discussing what this looks like now that Russ is in LA, and they all looked excited as they were sitting down talking about it.
But
Man,
that's the
like
point.
and that's the stuff that I just really hate about Braun. He want to throw the rug but then hide his hand. I have the screenshot of the Bleacher Report banner where it says Braun and AD meet with Russ as we sit down to figure out how this can all work. You find out how big of a mess it was, and now you want to blame us. Now, granted, I agree with you, KB. If at the point where you felt like AD was going to take the reins, you should have been catering to his needs. But is this not a common theme in every LeBron team where he strongholds them? And all right, when I'm done with you, I'm just gonna throw you away like a rag doll. And you know what? Good luck. Pick up the pieces that as you may. I just like when I saw the report that oh, the relationship with the Lakers was fractured because of the Russell Westbrook thing. Homie, you told us to go get him. You told us, and not only Russell, you told us to bring in Carmelo.
Yeah.
What you mean it's fractured?
Like and then we did you a solid, like I said, by drafting Bronny. And that was one of those things. They didn't have to draft Bronny.
Listen.
It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant at the end of the day, just because of the fact that he was a late pick. But it's like, it's not that we picked him because we thought he was going to help us. We did that for you. So it is kind of messed up that you because LeBron, one thing he does dictate the narrative no matter where he's at. So it is going to be one of those things. But he also wants to absolve himself from a lot of blame when certain things don't work out. So when you are critical of LeBron, you do have some type of you can make that type of assumption about him because of the fact that it's been pretty much the same story no matter where he's been. He's been in situations where he's been on teams, they've made deals, or like if you go onto a team with LeBron James, the roster construction is going to flip within a year or two. It's going to flip. It's going to switch up almost simultaneously, because if he feels like he can't win with you, you're pretty much good as gone, because they're trying to make it, like, they're trying to accommodate him and his request because they know how much he can help a franchise, but he also hurts a franchise because sometimes that he can get into situations, completely flip the roster upside down, and they can do away with assets like young players that they were developing prior to his arrival. So it is one of those things that LeBron can't just look at his entire Laker tenure as like, yeah, they just didn't give me enough. No, brother, you gotta you gonna have that blemish on that for that trade, because that trade does not happen without you or AD. You and AD both got to hold that one, because I don't think that it was the fact that, because we just saw with prior to Russ coming to LA, the Wizards, he was still that same Russ. He was still averaging triple doubles. He was still dominant. So you mean to tell me that within a year of him coming from the Wizards to the Lakers, he just forgot how to play basketball? I don't believe so. I still don't believe in that. I think that it was never a good fit. I think that they were just going off the fact that he was a player that they wanted, not looking at the fit for the team, but it was just a guy that they wanted over there. Because I could look at it from a spacing issue, from a ball distribution issue. It was never going to work. And it didn't work. And I don't think that was Russ's fault either, because he didn't ask to get put in that situation. He probably green-lighted the trade because he was like, yeah, I get to go play with two guys that can help me get a championship. But he was very content doing what he was doing. And without all the scrutiny that he had to face. His career took, like, if you take out his LA tenure, I think that the stigma around Russ is completely different. It's completely different. How he's portrayed by others is completely different. I'm just going off of what I've seen out there. I just think that they were never an ideal trio. That was never a fit. Bringing in Carmelo made it even worse fit, because you asking guys that have been accustomed to be number one options on their teams to take backseat roles that they are not accustomed to doing. Because even in Houston, Russ still had the ball for a pretty good portion of those possessions, even with James Harden on the team. So it wasn't going to fit the way like Anthony Davis and LeBron would fit, because they can play off of each other well. That fit was there. It never a fit with Russell. And so like LeBron has to accept the fact that people are going to look at his tenure as a failure when you're talking about some of the moves or some of the deals that he was actually negotiating. That's what he was negotiating, whether people want to admit it or not.
All right, so we will continue to stay tuned to what the Lakers are going to continue to do throughout free agency, as well as any other moves. And like I said, and KB, you pretty much agree with me on this too. I still think there could be movement involving Anthony Davis. I really do. I think there's a strong chance that he's not in Washington again next season. And will it be the Warriors? Yeah, we'll see. But want to thank Lawrence for coming on and joining us for this portion of the show. Everybody, please be safe this weekend. It's the 4th of July weekend. It's the 250th celebration of America. So make smart choices, eat well, enjoy your family, enjoy your friends, enjoy your loved ones. And we'll see y'all back here again next week on the Why Not Us, Why Not Now podcast. For KB, I'm X. We're saying peace.